and if you are new to my channel, thank you for stopping by and checking it out. If you are returning, this is the fifth and final installment of our Races of Humanity series in Greek mythology. And if you're new, this channel is, I would say, fairly eclectic. I do a mix of bookish, mythology, folklore, fables, readings, or deep dives. I'm also very into cozy cottagecore type of vibes, so it might be a mix of things like that. I try to stick to those general interests or topics in order to keep it a little more focused. I do have a separate crafting channel that I'm also doing some things with, but it was I didn't feel like a great idea to have too many things going on in one place because not everyone's always into everything and not everyone's super eclectic like that. So in terms of my bookish interests, I do a lot of fiction reading. I will occasionally, about once or twice a month, read a nonfiction book. I do adore retellings, especially if they're mythology, folklore oriented. But without further ado, let's jump into the races of humanity. We understand the races of humanity based on the works of Hesiod, who was a poet and writer back in ancient Greece, and he created Works and Days, and it's where he goes through and illustrates the 5 different races or ages of humanity, how they started, what they looked like, where their downfall was. We are at the final race, and this would be the Iron Age. Now, just to go over a brief overview of what we've kind of discussed or delved into, there are 5 races in Greek mythology of humanity. The first race was the Golden Race. This was created, these were people created by Cronus after the Titanomachy, after he overthrew his own father. So there was the Golden Race, everything was perfection, it was harmony, it was everything that you would think of an ideal world. And then Zeus overthrew the Titans, overthrew Cronus. He came into power and he took the Golden Race and allowed them to become spirits on the earth, kind of parallel with us. I think he just got rid of them because he didn't make them, because there was nothing wrong. Everything was perfect. There was nothing wrong with them existing. But Zeus got rid of them, and then he created the Silver Race. Now, the Silver Race they lived in harmony. They were wise. They were smart. They were able to function to their own detriment, independent from the gods. And what this did was create them to be arrogant in a way that they denounced their gods. And they no longer needed them. They no longer viewed worshiping them as having any benefit. So they went ahead and didn't give tribute. They didn't pray to them. They didn't give the gods enough attention at the end of the day is what happened. So Zeus got rid of them. And then he decided to make the Bronze Race. Now, the Bronze Race is a new set of peoples. They were constantly obsessed with violence. There was constant warfare. There was no safety in the world. There was just havoc, mayhem, and again, complete violence. So he went ahead and got rid of them again. The Silver Race, if I can backtrack a little bit, the Silver Race he put underneath the earth and kind of hid them away because they had denounced the gods. He didn't want to, I guess, immortalize them the same way he did the Golden Race, because in all reality, the Golden Race as a peoples did nothing to offend Zeus. They were simply a victim of their own circumstance. They existed, and that was enough to make Zeus unhappy. So he at least treated them with a fair afterlife. He also treated, I guess, the silver race with their version of a fair afterlife by kind of hiding them underneath the earth. The bronze race faded into the underworld without glory. They were just obsessed with bloodshed. They wiped themselves out. The gods didn't even have to interfere or do anything. They got rid of themselves and went to the underworld. No glory, just faded. Their souls exist in the underworld. Then we get to the heroic age. In the heroic age, it's a new race of people. So this is now the fourth version of humanity from scratch. And Zeus goes ahead and puts them on Earth. And this is during the age, hence the heroic age, where we get the heroes that we know and love, the stories of Greek mythology, the monsters, the adventures. This is the age of great fables, I should say. This is what, when we think of Greek mythology, this is during that time period. What marks the end of this time period is the Trojan War and then the Civil War in Thebes. So those were two of the events that sort of mark the end of this age. So the heroic age faded away. There was a distinct series of events that ended it, but ultimately it truly didn't end until the final hero passed away. Most of them honestly passed away during war, which is kind of why the Trojan War was such a harsh ending, because most of them fought in the Trojan War. Most of them died in the Trojan War. Some of them, I'm sure, passed away of a natural death. They had relatively speaking, they weren't immortal. They had some sort of ending of life. And then we transition into the Iron Age, or the Iron Race. And this is where Hesiod believes that we are currently living in. We are currently living in the Iron Age, and it's one that he describes full of hardship, conflict, and moral decline. So I think it's interesting, even back in whatever century they were writing this in, they said life is just hardship, moral decline from the get-go. So, by the way, the Works and Days that Hesiod wrote is 2,700 years old. So this was before current era. He believed humanity had reached its final age, the Iron Age. Unlike the other ages of humanity, the Iron Age wasn't a story about people who had already come and gone. It was the world Hesiod saw around him, and according to the myth, it's the age we live in today. After the great heroes of myth passed away, the world entered an era unlike any before. The peace of the golden age was long forgotten. The innocence of the silver age had vanished. The strength of the bronze age ended in destruction, and even the legendary heroes were gone. Now it was just ordinary people left to face a harsher reality. The defining feature of the Iron Age is toil. Unlike the Golden Race, who received everything they needed from the earth, the people of the Iron Age must work constantly to survive. The fields must be plowed, crops planted, homes built, and livelihoods earned. Nothing came easy. For Hesiod, hard work wasn't a punishment in itself, it was simply the condition of human life. But he believed life had become increasingly difficult because humanity had drifted away from justice and virtue. So it still has flaws similar to, I guess, similar to the Silver Age. I mean, the Silver Age, they still worked in harmony. I don't think necessarily the earth gave them everything in the Silver Age, but it was much easier than what it sounds like this Iron Age. Getting food, planting food, growing food, caring for food. It sounds like the Iron Age has a lot more difficulties. And being able to accomplish those goals. The Iron Age is marked by moral decline. Hesiod describes a world where honesty becomes rare, greed overshadows generosity, and people begin putting their own interest above everyone else's. Trust starts to disappear, neighbors become suspicious of one another, friends betray friends, and even members of the same family turn against each other. So even 2,700 years ago, these are the same things happening now as was happening then. So it sounds like even if there was an argument that we are living in this current age, nothing has changed. It's the same. One of Hesiod's most striking warnings is that children would no longer honor their parents. In ancient Greece, respecting one's parents were considered one of the foundations of a healthy society. Hesiod feared a future where those bonds would weaken, leaving communities fractured and isolated. Which I guess you could have an argument that that happens today, although that really needs to be a separate discussion. He also believed that wealth and power would become more important than justice. I think you can make an argument for that too. Instead of rewarding honesty, society would often reward those who could deceive, manipulate, and overpower others. The truly good person might struggle while the dishonest prosper. And I think there's an argument to say that that's happening right now too. So it sounds like Hesiod knew what he was talking about. As humanity continued to decline, even the gods began to withdraw. Hesiod tells us that two important divine figures would eventually leave the earth. The first was Eidos, often translated as shame or reverence. Eidos wasn't shame in the modern sense of embarrassment. She represented conscience, the inner voice that reminds people to do what is right, even when no one is watching. The second is Nemesis, the goddess of righteous justice and rightful consequences. She ensured that arrogance, cruelty, and injustice did not go unanswered. When Eidos and Nemesis departed from the world, Hesiod said humanity is left to face its own corruption. Without reverence or justice guiding society, violence, deceit, and selfishness become increasingly common. Despite this bleak picture, Hesiod does not say that every individual is doomed to be evil. In fact, one of the central messages in Works and Days is that each person still has a choice. Even in the Iron Age, people can choose honesty over deception. They can choose kindness over cruelty. They can choose hard work over laziness. They can choose justice even when injustice seems easier. That is what makes the Iron Age different from the earlier ages. The previous races were judged as generations. The Iron Age places responsibility on individuals. Many modern readers are surprised by how familiar Hesiod's complaints sound. He worried about corrupt leaders, dishonest business practices, broken families, endless conflict, and the feeling that society was becoming less honorable with each passing generation. These concerns could easily fit into conversations happening today. Like I was saying, sounds very familiar. Not surprised that this is how he felt because it is how most of us probably feel today. Some scholars believe this is exactly why the myth has remained relevant for nearly 3,000 years. Every generation has looked around and wondered whether the world is becoming more difficult, more divided, or less than it once was. Whether Hesiod was describing history, offering social criticism, or simply expressing the frustrations of his own time is still debated, but his message remains powerful. The 5 ages of humanity are not simply a timeline, they are a reflection of human nature itself. The Golden Age asks what humanity could be. The Silver Age warns against pride. The Bronze Age shows the danger of glorified violence. The Heroic Age reminds us that courage and honor can still exist even in troubled times. And the Iron Age leaves us with the most important question of all. If this is truly the age we live in, what kind of people will we choose to become? I like that. So I'm not entirely sure how it would have been interpreted during his time because it seems like, and I've even heard, you know, just in social media and things, a lot of the same complaints as what he's saying. So I wonder if they were as like agreed, like if people who were seeing his work and viewing his work also agreed with some of his concerns with the future. I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts or comments on. We went through all 5 races of humanity. I had no idea that this was even a thing until I started doing some readings about Greek mythology for the channel. So that's what led me to doing a whole series for it. I think it's interesting, and I think it goes to show how prevailing some of the concerns that we have for our future really are, if they're true nearly 3,000 years later, and we still haven't figured it out. So, and life goes through cycles, right? Like they say there's a 100-year cycle for most things. So let me know what your thoughts and comments are. Please subscribe if you've made it this far. We're on part five of a 5-part series, and you've made it to the end of this video. So please subscribe. Definitely comment with any thoughts. And remember, have fun and be safe. And I'll catch you in the next video.